was doing development and web hosting, but he lived in Peru, and he would be paying with his French credit card to get different things. And the problem is because he's in Peru, each time someone uses a French card from Peru, they get flagged for potential fraud and so on. So he asked me if I would be able to accept Bitcoins for payment. So that was probably in the middle of 2010. At the time where Bitcoin was still very new. Like there was only a few hundred people on the forum and so on. So I looked into it. I found Bitcoin interesting as a technical aspect, looking how it worked and so on. So I've implemented at the time Bitcoin payments directly using the original Bitcoin D, which the idea was basically for each order, create a new address, then pull the address to see if Bitcoins came on it and automatically confirm the address. It was a really simple process for that, but it worked. So I was probably the first actual business, like a registered business, accepting Bitcoin payments back in 2010, because it was still the days of people selling an alpaca socks or someone buying a couple pizza for 10,000 Bitcoins. So it was still very early in terms of Bitcoin history.
Right. So how did you go from accepting Bitcoin for one payment, where you offered one service, to actually owning an exchange, which turned out to become the largest in the world?
Quite a few things happened, but the main thing is, as I got involved with the Bitcoin community, lots of people were still starting on the technical side. So Jed, who was the original Mongox founder,
Jed McCallum?
Yes, Jed McCallum. Ended asking me quite a few things in terms of technical help. And 2011, I think in January, he sent me an email asking me if I was interested into buying and taking over Mongox. And for me at the time, the idea sounded interesting because Mongox was a kind of business that could be fully automated, so I could just keep it running while doing something else I thought at the time. So I was interested, but at the same time, I didn't have any cash on hand. So I told him, yeah, that would be interesting, but I don't have any money to buy this right now. So I told me, yeah, I don't need money. You can just take over and do a revenue share for 6 months and so on. So, I mean, that sounded very interesting, like a very, very good deal. So I took him on the offer and I took over Mongox. So we took the contract and everything. So I started operating Mongox in March of the same year.
So March of 2011, you took over MTGOX?
Exactly.
To me, it almost sounds like one of these devil at the crossroads myths, where someone young and aspiring to do something great meets someone who offers them a great deal. And it almost feels too good to be true, and there's always a catch.
Yeah, there was quite a catch, actually, yes. So Mongox had been operating since 2010 in July, and the Reno system that was made had quite a few issues that I had to fix, but ended being fully hacked in 2011 in June. But one of the biggest things that happened is actually when Jed got in touch with me in January, and I agreed. We went through the contract in February, and the passing of the server access was in March. But right before the server access was given to me, basically, some Bitcoin were stolen. And that actually accelerated Jed sending me the access to the server, because he just contacted me one morning telling me, okay, Bitcoins are missing. and asked me to look into it and just give me the access to info at the time.
Okay, so basically your first experience with the exchange was that you lost money?
Basically, yes. That would be, I guess, relevant to the rest of the story with Mongox, because as Jade told me, because the contract was already signed and everything, so I had to take over and handle it. I didn't know what to do at that point, and Jed gave me basically 3 options to go with: to either try to raise funds to buy Bitcoins back, or to I forgot the second option. The third option was just to buy back Bitcoin over time slowly. But he was very adamant that customers knowing about this would mean the end of the business. So I would have to keep that under wraps.
Okay, so what did you choose?
From the 3 options he provided, because anyway, at the time there was no funding, no one really looking into investing into Bitcoin. All of the VC firms and so on, nobody knew about Bitcoin at the time yet. So the only real option that was temporary a coin representing the missing Bitcoins that can be traded or exchanged when the Bitcoins have been earned. So it's a little bit of the third solution, just to earn those Bitcoins back. But the transparency aspect is actually very important for this.
So what you're describing right now sounds like what Bitfinex did with the Leo token when they issued a token just to cover for the funds that were stolen from the exchange.
I think that's probably the best way to handle this kind of case, because we've now seen it done, we've seen it working, and of course at the time back in 2011, Bitfinex didn't exist yet, so there was no it was still to happen, but in hindsight that would have been the best way to handle this.
Interesting, but at the same time it was difficult to create tokens. I think this was 2011. There was no colored coins as far as I know. There was no counterparty, there was no omni layer. How are you supposed to issue something like another coin? Just, I don't know, fork Bitcoin, create another blockchain and give people coins?
You don't actually need to have a blockchain. It could be just a coin inside the exchange. As long as it serves as a balance and you can trade it, that would have been more than enough. And the actual issuance of the coin could be something that happened later or not at all.
Okay, interesting. In hindsight, you could have done that. So would you describe your experience with Mt. Gox from the first couple of years as positive? Do you think it was a good decision to take on this business? Or obviously, do you have any regrets about it?
I do have some regrets. If I had to do it again, I would do it again, but not the same way. There's quite a few things that would have been different, including the way the original contract was written and made. One of the things is the agreement that was made with Jed was made with that. I didn't have some funds even to get a lawyer at the time, so I assumed everything was done in good faith and I didn't question anything. But inside, I probably should have questioned quite a few things about this. So depending on the way the contract was made, things could have been handled a lot better. The other thing is, when I took over Mongox, I didn't rewrite all of the source code immediately. I waited a couple of months, and because of that, the exchange was hacked in June. And that's also something I should have handled a lot faster, because the very first thing that happened with Mongox were mostly linked to the way it was originally built. Um, and there's a lot of things that could have been built better in the real platform that was made by Jed.
But do you feel like Bitcoin became big so fast that you couldn't keep up? Like there was a short list of things you could have done better, but the growth and the interest in the project went up so fast that maybe that you were overpowered or you couldn't work
Yes,
fast enough to keep up with all the challenges.
there's a lot on that too, because after taking over Mongox, very quickly, there was this article in the Time magazine, I think, that brought a lot of people to Bitcoin. And just looking at the growth between March, when I took over, we had like 6,000 customers on Mongox or something like that. And in June, when the hack happened, there were 60,000 customers. So that's a lot more customers to deal with. That was also a lot more customer support to the handle. People sending bank transfers all over that had to be handled still manually for some of those. So this took some time to streamline the process. And while I was working on this, then we had some US senators, or I don't know what kind of people, that made a letter saying that Bitcoin was a bad thing because of Silk Road. I think that happened around June. But this became not only a business that was growing very fast, but it was making enemies with governments and politicians, which is not something you want for a business, because that meant dealing not only with growth, but with compliance much faster than I was expecting.
I think Satoshi went through a similar process, but with WikiLeaks. When WikiLeaks listed Bitcoin as a way to donate money, Satoshi said that we kicked the hornet's nest and they're coming for us, and he basically disappeared shortly after. The difference is that you did not disappear, you stuck around. But there are still people, okay, and these are different kind of allegations or stories. Some people say that you might be Satoshi because you built such early infrastructure for Bitcoin and you believed in the project when very few people did, and you made onboarding much easier. And there are people who believe that you're involved in the Silk Road story and that you might be one of the people behind the Dread Pirate Roberts account. Is any of this true, or is there any merit to these claims?
I'll start by saying that none of this is true. For Satoshi, obviously, there's many things that show that I'm not Satoshi, but at the same time, I do think that everyone that's involved in cryptocurrencies and Bitcoin should respect Satoshi's will of not being tracked. So the question of who is Satoshi is kind of a taboo thing, I believe. As for the Great Pirates Robert thing, that has a lot to do with the US government investigation that initially looked at me, mostly because Great Pirates Robert's initial web hosting company of choice to host a page outside of the Onion network to explain how to get to Silk Road was my company, which was one of the first hosting company accepting Bitcoins. And I think they just looked at the servers of my name and didn't think further than that.
Yeah, to me it's interesting that you are associated with maybe two of the biggest names in the early history of Bitcoin. Not associated by participation, that's not what I'm implying, just that people think that you are one of these people.
Yeah, I mean, for Silk Road, it's very easy for me to say that it's not because of the way it's been built on. The idea behind Silk Road is to allow people to buy drugs, and basically it's a darknet market. That goes a little bit against my own ideas of what things should be. For me, if you want to do something that's currently not legal in your country, the best way is to vote or to get it to become legal, or to just move to another country. And we live in a world where it's fairly easy to move around. So we are very lucky with this, I believe. But yeah, that would be my way of, I think, you want drugs, you can move to Amsterdam or whatever place that would be more legal, or you can, as things have been happening in the US, it seems to be legalized locally.
I have a few. So, first of all, I have to say that I agree with voting with your feet. If you don't like something, just go somewhere else. I don't think we've ever seen this degree of freedom of movement or accessibility to flying in the history of our civilization. So it's fairly easy in most parts of the world to just go somewhere else if you don't agree with your government. Secondly, I've received some questions from people who basically hold the YubiKeys that at some point you were handing with the history of Mt. Gox and the hacks. At one point you were giving out these secure devices for securing their accounts, which I think is interesting. And do you believe that any of these hacks could be prevented if you look at it from what you know right now and the ability that you had back then?
To be quite honest, in terms of hacks, Mongox has been receiving multiple hacking attempts every day. So Mongox ended being hacked as we know today, but the number of hacks we actually prevented versus the number, I mean, there was only one hack, which is all it took for Mongox to be defeated, basically. But how to say this exactly? Because there was so many hacking attempts every day that we actually stopped. It's a little bit like, the game where you have to tap on things that just come up on. The more you tap on this, the more come up. And at some point, you cannot keep up with this. So the number of hacking we were getting was kind of the same thing. You protect something else getting attacked. And it's... sorry, I don't have the right words for me coming right now in English, but it's a never-ending battle, basically. The only thing is, as an exchange, if you lose just once, it's the end of the game, while hackers get to try again and again and again. So it's actually very stressful, and you really don't get to rest at any time. And for the way this hack actually specifically happened, I don't have all of the details because some of those are in the head of law enforcement. And typically when law enforcement investigate something, they don't tell you what they find. But I do have good information to believe that the hacking that really took down Mongox happened not by remote access, but through physical access to the servers.
Oh, that's interesting. It's definitely something that we're going to find out more about if this ever becomes like a public reveal as part of the investigation. Are the Japanese authorities still researching this case? Because I know that some customers of Mt. Gox received some of their Bitcoin, but not the amount of coins that they had, but the amount of US dollars that they had invested into coins at the time. And I'm curious to know if there are still any investigations into this, or if modern blockchain analysis techniques have pushed the research any further.
In terms of research, I mean, the main thing that we know, and we knew that since 2017, is that 500,000 Bitcoins, actually more than 550,000 Bitcoins were laundered by Alexander Venik, who was arrested in Greece, spent some time in Greece, and spent a few years in France before finally arriving in the US. where he was tried. He pleaded guilty and then ended into a prison exchange with Russia. So we know that most of the Bitcoin actually went through his hands. So it's not a matter of tracking this on the blockchain. That should be a matter of recovery. The only issue is because it's back in Russia, I don't think there's any reason for anyone to want to return anything anymore.
That's a bit depressing.
Yes, as to the repayments are basically based on not the dollar amount at the time. That was something that was due to happen a few years ago during the bankruptcy, but the price of Bitcoin increased. The repayments are now based on the pro rata amount of Bitcoins available from the cold wallet that remained, which is about